Hello, everyone. Welcome to Buddhist Center. We're talking about Tsongkhapa again this evening. We're so happy to do this over and over and over again. Look at Lama Tsongkhapa's foundation of all good qualities, source of all my good, in such depth, using Lama Tsongkhapa's own work, a great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, to try to understand each and every one of these stanzas better. And then other beautiful works, such as Meditation on Emptiness and Kamaleshila's stages of the meditation, and Pabunka Rinpoche's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, and of course, using Pabunka Rinpoche's little kind of short, very powerful commentary on foundation of all good qualities, source of all my good, begging for a mountain of blessings, that is so incredible and shows us how to divide this text into four categories. And that allows us to basically understand how to divide two huge volumes of works by Tsongkhapa into four categories, how we would divide the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment and the great treatise on the stages of the tantric path to enlightenment into four categories. So it's really cool to be able to see how we could take, a lot of pages, over 1,000 pages of work, and put it into four categories and really be able to see that this is accurate, and that each and every, pathway that one would take spiritually is included, within this very, very short poem of 14 stanzas. And I feel privileged to be able to discuss it with you tonight, and just can't believe that Khenser Geshe Wandak gave us so much information to put into these stanzas by teaching us that incredible root text to the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment. And we see that we can take everything that I'm talking about, we can take all 14 stanzas and put them into one stanza that says, understand there are persons of three capacities, small, medium, and great. I shall write clearly to identify their individual characteristics. We see that the 14 stanzas fit into that one stanza. We see that the abbreviated stages of the path to enlightenment, the Lamrim Dudin, the Lamrim Nyamjur, all fit in to that one stanza. The medium stages of the path to enlightenment all fit into that one stanza by Lord Atisha from the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. And the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment fit into that. And not only the great treatise on the stage of the path of the perfect, the normal Lamrim Chemo, great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, but the great treatise on the stage of the tantric path to enlightenment. So we see that one stanza by Lord Atisha has a lot of power within it. And we're looking at, a few more stanzas than that one stanza to try to fill in the gaps of what these beings of three capacities might be, searching out what they would want, how they would get what they'd want, and so forth. And who are they? They're we, they're us. That's me that Lama Tsongkhapa is showing. If you want this is what you do. If you want this is what you do. And it's so beautifully laid out and expressed and so poetically by Lama Tsongkhapa, that if you have some frame of reference to the larger works that he's done, and so many incredible, works on, Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti's and Maitreya's texts. I mean, just incredible works. If you become even vaguely familiar with, and at least vaguely familiar with the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, you'll just be blown away more and more and more by this short poem. So that's enough, selling the excellent qualities of this short poem and of the Lamrim tradition, and of the fortune that we have in meeting with teachings that make sense, teachings that are put into, graduated stages that, show us exactly what we need to do and how to do it and when to do it and why to do it and how it, causes this to happen. And we can logically kind of see that it all fits together in the way that it's being presented, instead of just having a massive material, maybe a sutra or two, and not really knowing how to relate to it or how to integrate it into our lives, or because we aren't of the kind of scope of the beings that the Buddha was presenting the material to directly at that time. If we study and we look historically at the story about the Buddha's students, is that they had this retention that was incredible, and they had this capacity that was really specific to what the Buddha was talking about. So whenever the Buddha was talking, he was teaching to scope, right? We know the Buddha was omniscient. So the Buddha was teaching to the scope of the audience as an omniscient being, and knowing they knew exactly what he meant by the stuff he was saying. And sometimes we need help because we weren't the ones sitting there. We're just, kind of getting this pool of information from a bunch of people who were like us. And it all compiles, all the different types of affinities and afflictions and everything that needs to be combated. And at the root, what really needs to be combated is the self-grasping ignorance, if we want to get rid of suffering. And if we want to get rid of, the kind of cap, the happiness cap, and we want to have bliss, we want to have like the most amount of happiness possible, we have to figure out how to not only get rid of the self-grasping ignorance, but get rid of the self-cherishing attitude at its most subtle level, and start to learn to work for the needs of others, not just ourselves. We can just work for ourselves and become really, really wise and calm and want to get out of cyclic existence and do so. But we won't have achieved our aims and all sentient beings' aims unless we couple that with this beautiful mind of bodhicitta that leads us to the actual state of Buddhahood. And there's no other door into a pathway which leads to Buddhahood than the door of bodhicitta. When we look at it in terms of the Mahayana vehicle, the entrance to the Mahayana vehicle is bodhicitta. And there's no other door into the Mahayana than bodhicitta. And it's only the Mahayana path. All paths lead to Buddhahood, but they have to get to this Mahayana ideal of bodhicitta for that to happen. Some of them take a little bit longer, and some arhats sit on an island and need to relax for a while, but eventually all beings will become Buddhas. So, we will take this kind of evolution of idea that says, oh, I need to start to look at all sentient beings' needs if I want to fulfill my own needs. And that's what I set out to do. If one was in an abiding nirvana as a hero solitary realizer, they set out to fulfill all of their own needs. And they haven't done it because they haven't reached perfection. They're not the happiest beings in the universe. They aren't the most wise, capable. They haven't done their best. And they set out to do their best. So even an arhat, who's then told by the Buddha, hey, and has already heard these teachings, by the way, hearers, it's part of they've already heard these teachings, by the way. They just didn't think it was necessarily for them. They could even teach them, supposedly. They just didn't. You can see it in the illuminating the thought or illuminating the intent by Lama Tsongkhapa, the Mongoma Rapso. Lama Tsongkhapa's beautiful commentary on Chandrakirti's entrance to the middle way, which also incorporates Chandrakirti's auto commentary, Clear Words. It's so incredibly just lucid. Thupten Jinpa did an incredible job. We're so fortunate that we have this text translated into English. No, it's a different the entrance to the middle way. Supplement to the middle way is the more preferred translation of Gen Jeffrey Hopkins. So it's a supplement because it supplements. Thank you. I appreciate the interaction. It will throw me off track, though. I promise you this. But it's also called Entrance to the Middle Way. But Gen Jeffrey Hopkins and the Ummah translation crew, many of his students translate it as supplement. And there's a reason for it. I won't try. I have the gist of it, and it makes sense, and it's very arguable. And I'm just not used to saying supplement. But a lot of people are using that as the general language for it these days. But back to my point is that we're really fortunate that we have this pathway that's laid out that shows us, not not only how to achieve this kind of freedom from suffering, but how to achieve this full potential that we all have and we will all achieve no matter what. And why? Because we all want what's best. We want the best. We want, we want to be fully free from suffering. We want to be fully capable. And when we look at how we would, the people we love the most, we don't want to let them down. And when we learn to love everybody in the universe, we won't want to let anyone down. And when we can experience that kind of selfless love, we start to experience like what the parent does when the birth of a child happens, that kind of feeling multiplied times every single sentient being in the universe. And that isn't the same kind of feeling that a being who's just free from suffering has. That's different. You can even feel it when I say it. You just don't have suffering, or you have the kind of bliss you've experienced at its most heightened level, just because that's all you can imagine. I don't have a kid, so I have to think of something else, right? Whatever, use your thing and just multiply it times every being in the universe. And you would see that that's something you would want. And there's a different feeling there than no suffering versus that kind of like bliss. And then you start to kind of feel the difference between the object of love is wanting sentient beings to have happiness, and the object of compassion is wanting sentient beings to be free from suffering. And everyone says they're the same, but just feel the difference. Explaining the difference, you can do this YIMBY chair, my YIMBY chair, you can do this with debate, but feel the difference, this idea of the bliss you've experienced multiplied times every being in the universe versus not suffering ever again. And both are something you want very much, but one doesn't mean the other. In the case of this end of suffering forever. But if you get the bliss, you have both, because it means you've gotten rid of the afflictive obstructions that get rid of all the suffering, and you've gotten rid of the obstructions to omniscience that make it so you can have that bliss I'm talking about. And we have the pathway right here presented for us. Logically, not blind faith. We can kind of have a faith that comes through a clarification, a real faith that's founded in kind of a, aspiring towards something that we've clarified as being accurate. And we can clarify it through these texts. And it's the only way we're going to do it, unless we're super, super high scope. But at least we have the texts. Because if we just had one or two sutras that the Buddha was talking to some specific people about and had no way to know, are these definitive? Are they interpretable? Was this the first turning of the wheel? Is it the second turning of the wheel? How does this relate? Do I need to really trust everything the Buddha said? Did he mean everything that he said? Can I be taken at face value? How do I know? And luckily, we have all these ways to know. We have magnifications of these texts that have been done by very qualified masters. Why? Because they have so much compassion and love for us, because they want us to be free from suffering and they want us to have happiness. So in the same kind of vein, in the same way that these great masters have seen the value of generating love, compassion in the mind that aspires to enlightenment because of knowing it's the only way to get to Buddhahood, we start the teaching by putting these kind of imprints in our mind, even if it's in a contrived way or if we just feel like we're faking it. The more and more we do exercises like this, and the more we meditate in the morning on the 7-point cause and effect for, realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment and equalizing and exchanging self with others, the more and more we meditate on this, and the more and more we can make our kind of field of bodhicitta bigger throughout, kind of seeing beings as objects of observation throughout the day and kind of taking a mental picture of them if you can. This is something that's very valuable. Wherever you go, try to just kind of take a mental picture of the person on the bicycle. Don't crash the car, right? Don't fixate, but the person at the supermarket, the person at the wherever you are. Try to start to, because if you're doing that, you're engaging in mindfulness, is saying that I'm trying to familiarize my mind with becoming, seeing beings at least as more equally, kind of equal basis to benefit. But really what I'm trying to get at is something a lot bigger than that. So we're taking kind of pictures throughout our day of birds and of people and of whatever sentient being we can, so that then at our night or morning, whenever we're meditating, and we do this meditation we're about to do, where we imagine we're bringing sentient beings here to be our guests and meditate on them, and we do the various types of meditations on bodhicitta, as Kamala Shila says, we use real people, real beings that we can relate to, not ones that we're just imagining in some other planet. We have a bigger field to kind of work with. And the more and more larger the field becomes, the more it's becoming less and less contrived, because we're relating to actual beings. And it gets to the point where it becomes the basis for the transformation into our mind to be able to actually connect with those beings that we're kind of thinking about. And we're making larger and larger, because a bodhisattva is just broadening his or her expanse of care. It says one of the Buddha's excellent qualities is caring for others. The quality of the wisdom mind is caring for others. It's knowing diversity and reality, conventional and ultimate truth, the fancy, but also it's just this caring for others, and this caring for others that the Buddha's mind has is the perfect caring, because the Buddha can see everyone, knows where they all are, and knows what they all need. And the bodhisattvas don't have that capacity even at the highest levels. It's not until they remove the obstructions to omniscience at the 8th, 9th, and 10th bodhisattva ground, where they remove those subtle stains of self-cherishing attitude that keep them from caring for everyone in the most complete way, at the most subtle way, so that they could care for them by knowing exactly what they need at each moment. That kind of removal of self-centeredness. I care so much, I need to know what everyone in the universe needs at each moment. These obstructions to omniscience, the subtle self-cherishing attitude. I can only imagine. I'm trying to make it feel like something instead of be words. So I've kind of meditated it like this, like it kind of would feel like this. There's this subtle thing there that's not allowing every moment for a being to connect with every sentient being and care for them. There's some sort of gap. There's some sort of gap. Maybe they can get to them, and like 99% of them all at once, but there's something missing. So there's some sort of cap on the happiness, because until you connect with every single one and care for every single one in every single moment and are able to do so, there's some sort of gap there. And that gap is induced by the self-cherishing attitude that left a little print in there that has to be removed. There's a stain in there of some sort that makes it so that the mind can't just flow so freely to everything in the universe. And it's because of this subtle kind of self-cherishing attitude that's left over, so they say. So what we're trying to do, if we want to become someone who has no suffering and has bliss 24/7, is get rid of what we said, the afflictive obstructions to omniscience. And the way we do that is by understanding emptiness very well, but then also understanding how to put others' needs before our own, and understanding how that's actually the ticket to our most happy state. And this isn't in a dumb way. It's in a very skilled, intelligent, bright lights, calm way. It's not just, just let anybody do anything they want to you, if that's what they want. It's not like that. You're cherishing them. You don't want them to be harmed. You don't want them to create bad karma. You're looking at it in every single way to try to help that person. So it's not the way you would think when you hear, I put others' needs before my own. Oh, what they need. What they need isn't what you're thinking. It's not what they think they need when you're a bodhisattva. It's what you know they need. It's not what they think they need. So when you say putting their needs before your own, you got to look at what the word need is for that being. And that's what the Bodhisattva is working with, that needs part. And that's what's very, very different than what we would normally react to when we hear putting others' needs before our own. Well, that's just going to make me a doormat. No, you're being wise. You're using wisdom about what that being needs. And you can't really be so arrogant to think you know until you have clairvoyance and have these states that a bodhisattva can. So you just do your best in the meantime, and you fake it till you could actually make it. And that's what the Buddha's done, made it to that point of pure effectiveness. So now we're going to set seeds in our mind to be able to grow more pure effectiveness. And we're going to imagine that in our way that we can, hopefully, since last week, there's more pictures you have of beings in your mind, or now that you've heard this kind of instruction about taking these kind of pictures, next week or on what's today, on Sunday, you'll be able to come and say, wow, I've been able to meditate in a broader way. Or now we sit down to meditate on Sunday morning, we do this meditation, there's more beings that I bring here and it has more feeling for me, because for the last 3 days, I've actually kind of gone through life and tried to think about what it'd feel like if I was trying to connect with each of these beings. And it meant so much to me that I was trying to remember their faces, trying to remember who they are, because the Buddha knows who everyone is. Just try to remember like 5 people's faces. It just shows us how crazy busy our minds are. All the people we see throughout the day that are kind of non-discerning direct perceivers for us. But they could be objects that make us into bodhisattvas, but we just don't pay attention. But if we paid attention, they could be objects that make us into bodhisattvas. And when we turn our minds more towards paying attention, and paying attention the way that the kind of Buddha says makes sense to, because we've analyzed that the Buddha makes sense, we'll see that our minds start to really change, and practice becomes effective, and it becomes kind of a nonstop thing that seems missing if you're not doing it. And you think, if you look at the beginning of Meditation on Emptiness, there's this whole story about the yogi does this, and then the yogi meditates like this. And I encourage you to read it. And, it's almost like throughout the day, once you've read it enough, you say, what would the yogi do? What would the yogi do? It's almost like I want to make a shirt that says it. No one thought it was funny, though, in the group that is really into the book. So yeah, it didn't land. So I was ready to make shirts for everyone and stuff. But anyway, that's an inside joke. Those of you know what I'm talking about. It's pretty funny. So anyway, imagine that you bring every single sentient being in the universe here, any being at any level, who is a sentient being, and imagine that you're bringing hell, hungry, ghost, animal, human, demigods, and gods here to share this teaching with them, share this precious gift of the Dharma that you've been given so freely by your teachers. It was given so freely to me by Kensei Geshe Wandak, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and Geshe Dorje Damdu, Geshe Gompo, and Umsala Geshe Aga, Geshe Malatenzen Ladra, so forth, so freely given, and still so freely given to me. Imagine that you're able to share this with every single sentient being in the universe. So we won't, try to make it any more than that. I've given enough talk about this, but I really want to reinforce this because I feel like this is a key that if you get this key, you can open a door to more expansive virtue, because you create more virtue if you have more sentient beings you're doing in relation to. So just think about, if you can, imagine that you're making an offering, but imagine that you're making an offering and leading all sentient beings making an offering. It just multiplies your ability to do everything that you do in the Dharma. So it makes, like Robert Thurman says about Kala Chakra, it makes your life into a little time machine where you can, take this little chunk of time and actually do something with it real fast. And it becomes very effective very quickly. And this is kind of what Tantrayana is about, obviously. It's about, somehow working within this time and harnessing it just right. So if that's the end goal, is figuring out how to harness it right here, just right, this is what we should be trying to figure out how to do throughout our day. So now we're going to try to make our minds kind of more like a Buddha's mind, because the Bodhisattva wants to do that, and we want to become Bodhisattvas. And we know that cyclic existence is for the birds. So we have a joke around here. We know that cyclic existence isn't really great. And so we want to be out, because of the 8, 6, and 3 types of suffering that Lama Tsongkhapa has presented us so clearly with in the Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment, that we know what everybody's in for if they stick around. So just, we imagine we bring them all here, and we can trust this place, because we're looking at this text that clearly presents what Atisha said: understand there are persons of 3 capacities, small, medium, and great. I shall write clearly to identify their individual characteristics. In the language of gods, nagas, and yaksas, in the language of demons and humans too, and however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. La ike dan le dan no jinge drubon da dan mi ike nan dan roa gon ji dan dan ji zang ba dan je ke du da ji chu den do. Okay, now get into the 7-point Vairocana posture if you haven't already. And imagine that all sentient beings around you are in the 7-point Vairocana posture. There are many classes on the 7-point Vairocana posture that I've given, so I won't go over the details. We can find it in many of the great texts, and the reasoning behind it in many of the great texts. So we inspire others by getting into the 7-point Vairocana posture, and just begin and imagine that all sentient beings are doing this and calming their minds down with you, in order to be able to hear the teachings in the clearest way, so that they can have the wisdom arisen from hearing, analysis, and meditation. So imagine that, all sentient beings are with you in this 7-point Vairocana posture, calming their minds down, in order to be able to be free from the 3 types of kind of pots that we've studied in the Lam Rim, that are negative states where we aren't listening, or aren't listening well enough, or we're listening in a diluted way. And all of them are not ways that we can have the wisdom arisen from hearing. So just imagine that everyone's engaging this for the same reason that you are, and that's in order to get rid of kind of the discursiveness that's going on, that is kind of hindering one from being able to have the wisdom arisen from hearing or learning. That's so necessary as a starting point, as a stepping stone from that into analysis, into integrated meditation. So we need to be able to have clear objects and clear learning to be able to analyze and transform our minds with. So imagine that everybody's engaging in this same activity with us, in order to achieve the same thing that we are. But when we're doing this meditation now, we know that because we're studying calm abiding, that we're not drawing our minds outward, we're drawing our minds inward. So now when we start to do this meditation where we just focus on the breath, just to kind of get our kind of conceptuality down a little bit, and we'll talk more about calm abiding later on, because that's the topic kind of tonight. And so we'll talk about more of it in a little bit, but just to get the discursiveness down, we're going to, focus on breathing in and out and counting with our mental consciousness. And that's just our own mind. So we now aren't thinking about other sentient beings when we're telling our minds what to do. We told our minds what to do a minute ago, and we said, bring all sentient beings here. And now we said, okay, now we're all going to engage in an exercise. So everyone's getting into engage in their own exercise. And now it's separate mind streams. Mental consciousness now is being engaged. So now you're drawing your mind inward and you're focusing on, in this case, the focal object is the breathing in and out and counting. And this is just to try and calm our minds down a bit. And we're going to look out for kind of any kind of excitement or scattering that happens in the mind, any kind of noisiness. And we're going to look out for any kind of sleepiness or dullness, laxity that kind of comes up. We don't need technical terms. You don't want it, your mind to be busy and loud. You know what that sounds like at the beginner level. These are the things we deal with, and you don't want to fall asleep. So you're trying to ward those things off and then ward subtler aspects of those things off. And that's eventually how you get to the point where your mind is abiding calmly. But it's a process. So let's know what the focal objects are. We'll know what to look out for. And we know we have a little spy in our mind called introspection, a little spy that's making sure that mindfulness is holding the object. And mindfulness, again and again, is not forgetting the object. The object to not forget, breathing in and out and counting. Breathe in, breathe out, 1. Breathe in, breathe out, 2. And allowing the breath to naturally flow all the way to the top. His Holiness's instructions in Kamala Shila's stages of meditation, the commentary he gives, he says, bring the breath all the way, but do it very naturally. And it shouldn't be noisy. You shouldn't hear the noise of it, but you shouldn't be doing it so slowly that you feel like you're drowning. It's very important. In the oral tradition, you hear a lot of explanation about the breath and about how your body knows how to breathe. Allow the breathing to just kind of naturally flow in and out so that your mind can just focus on it. So you're not, having the kind of, just so your mind is focused on that specifically, and don't let the counting be on the wrong side. You told your mind, breathe in, breathe out, and count. So just tell your mind what to do and correct it if it does something different. So we'll just sit for a very, very short period of time, but let's all just sit together. And when I say all sentient beings sitting together, and let's just calm our minds down enough so that we could think about the merit field and then get on with kind of instructions about the stages of the path. And as you're breathing in and out, you can almost feel like with the conceptuality going down, you feel a loosening of a tension in your body that seems to occur. And you can almost feel like you have more gravitational pull, if you will, that you feel like you're sitting in more of a solid place as the mind starts to kind of slow down a little bit. And it starts to feel like you're almost planted there and so grounded. Whereas when maybe you got into the meditation, it felt like, you were, unstable and weren't able to kind of feel a posture, if you will. Whereas when you do this breathing meditation and you're, using it to focus your mind in, but one of the added benefits, you'll start to feel, there's no way you won't if you just start with that. You're supposed to try to get your body beforehand, into this place where you feel, very, very grounded in this 7-point Vairocana posture. But I think that you'll agree there's a loosening of something, winds that takes place and allows for even more of a subtler grounding. And you'll almost feel like loosenings of your knees and in your kind of hip area. If you're in a Vajra posture of any sort, half Vajra, just cross-legged, you'll feel some of those things start to go where they should go if you were to be able to sit for long periods of time. And this is the whole point, is this body posture will eventually allow you to sit for long periods of time. So it's always good to observe what's going on and what the benefits are and how they link to what the masters say will happen. And when we do meditations like this and we feel our bodies getting into more rested states, and sometimes it takes years. This is something, I've practiced for a long time, but it's something that only in the last years, I don't know how many, I've noticed really happening. And not like I have calm abiding. I don't ever want to sell that there's any high level things that are going on in my mind. But if we don't say something, then what have we been doing for 25 years or 30 years now almost? If we don't say something, something's happened. There's no testimonial. I mean, that's not the way that this tradition has worked. This tradition's been passed down by beings who've been affected. And so they've passed it down. So I just feel so fortunate to be able to have teachings that if I know, because of the acid test, because of the operation I've been trying to do on myself for a long time. Sometimes I've botched operations. Luckily, I haven't killed myself in any of the botching of the operations, but I can say that this stuff works and that it has an effect on the mind that allows you to be more realistic with circumstances and so forth. And then really start to have a feeling around these things that wasn't there before, that's really just induced by pure discovery, not by blind faith, not by, wow, that person's really great, just by pure discovery of these little tiny things. But they're so mind-blowing to someone like me that it just keeps me coming. So I just wanted to add that about the breathing meditation and the feeling of the posture and the feeling, allowing yourself to really get planted when you're in your meditation, or if you're in a chair, or however it is that you do your practice. If you're laying down supine, if you're laying down, allow yourself to, I've heard the meditations where you do body scanning and you really just get to the point where you're just sunk, not sinking. I understand that's the part you don't want. You want the clarity and all of that. But it's just interesting. Try it on. See if it's true. That's the whole thing about this. This is an exercise you do on your mind, and your mind's always there. So you have something to do all the time. Check it out, get your body into a posture and see what your mind does when you look at it, and see how it affects the physical posture, and see how then that physical posture then stops being part of it altogether because it settles in. And that's the whole point, is because you're trying to operate with your mind. And if the physical posture is being a hindrance, it's your mind is going, wait a second, I have to deal with my knee, or I have to deal with my back, or if the physical posture is planted, then it's there. It's like a ready to go. It's there and stable, and it's not going to cause you any problems. And the only way it gets to that place where it doesn't cause the problems is by repeatedly doing it. And I can say that it's accurate. And my knees are not that happy these days. That's one thing I can complain about. It seems to be something maybe we could figure out is, maybe there's a better way. Anyway, I won't give any speeches about things I don't know about, but everybody's knees seem to be bad. So I don't know what that means, but it's true. So now we have all sentient beings here as our guests. Feel so delighted that you're sharing this gift with all sentient beings, and you're doing it for the reason that we said, because you want to become a Buddha. And we know that in order to really seal any of these virtues up properly, we should be thinking about the emptiness of the action, agent, and object. So we should be really sealing this kind of idea about sentient beings with this emptiness that, the sentient beings are empty of inherent existence, and I'm empty of inherent existence, and the bringing of them here is empty of inherent existence. And Nagarjuna does a whole chapter on going, empty of inherent existence. When does going start, and so forth. So I encourage you to look at the Mulya Madhyamika Karika and try to figure it out, and then let me know if you do. And I mean that sincerely. It's such an incredible text, and it's so hard to penetrate. But Lama Tsongkhapa wrote such an incredible commentary, and we have it in English. The Ripi Jatso, the Ocean of Wisdom, Ocean of Reasoning, Ripi, Ocean of Reasoning, and translated by J. Garfield. We're so fortunate to have that text in our world, to be able to start to look at these incredible chapters that Nagarjuna is speaking of. So imagine now Buddha Shakyamuni is in the space in front of you. All sentient beings are here with you. You've brought them to now see Buddha Shakyamuni first. The one who appeared almost 2,600 years ago out of love and compassion for all sentient beings, to show us exactly what to do to achieve freedom from suffering and achieve bliss and reliability, to really achieve, our own purpose, all sentient beings' purpose. Really so beautiful. I mean, what a beautiful altruistic individual the Buddha is, and to come to the world and teach with such complexity because of knowing what everyone would need forever. This complexity was ready for forever. And we see 2,600 years later that this complexity is still just alive. And if it's unwoven enough, this complexity can change everything. Everything can make everything that you never thought was possible. And that's the jewel within Buddha Shakyamuni's work. And he was so kind to come to our world to share it with us. So imagine Buddha Shakyamuni, real Buddha Shakyamuni, not just a picture. Imagine Buddha's here. Like, hello, hi. Like, Buddha Shakyamuni's here in the space in front of you. And imagine then all of the holy beings start to fill in the space in front of you. Imagining any beings you consider enlightened beings. We know that, there's different ways to look at this, and I'm choosing to do it in this way, where, we've said all sentient beings, which is tricky because 10th level bodhisattvas are sentient beings. So we've brought 10th level bodhisattvas in our minds here because they're sentient beings. And I'm telling you that this merit field in front of us, I'm imagining, not you have to, you can divide it up, you can think different ways, but I'm saying this is a merit field full of beings who have no afflictive obstructions or obstructions to omniscience. This is what I'm putting out there, is the way I'm thinking about it with my mind. And of course, they aren't even all called Arya when we look at their name, and they weren't all prophesized by the Buddha as this or that. We don't know what another's realizations are. And because not knowing, not being sure, these beings are so reliable. If it's not them emanate, who is? So I'm willing in my practice to look at this whole merit field as Buddhas. So that's how I personally do it. So I share my practice with you, and this is how I do it. And I don't get caught up in it when I read a bio then, and it, says they were on the path of seeing when they moved on, or when they wrote this, or I just don't get, we know that the Buddhas emanate in various forms in order to evolve sentient beings. And we know that if all the Buddha's teachings are being explained so clearly, and they were taught to varying scopes of people, and then there's varying scopers scoping things out, it would make sense that they would be Buddhas emanating. So I'm okay with that. If you don't have to, you can do it in other ways. But I just wanted to share with you, for anybody who's looking at the technicality of all of this, that this is the meditation that makes sense in my mind and that feels most intimate to me. and then allows me to connect with my teachers as inseparable from the Yidam, as inseparable from the deity. And if my teacher, Khenso Geshe Wandak, is inseparable from the deity, how could Basu Bandhu not be? And how could Chandra Kirti not be? So this is how I work it out in my mind. How would Atisha not be then? And Drone Tompa not be? How could it be? So this is the visualization and the reasoning behind it. So imagining holy beings like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Khenso Geshe Wandak, Geshe Lobsang Gompo, imagining Demalocha Rinpoche, Khenso Lobsang Gyatso, imagining Geshe Dorje Damdu, Umzula Geshe Aga, Geshe Maletins and Ladrin, Jeffrey Hopkins. May all obstacles to his longevity be removed. May he have absolute peace at all times and not have to feel any suffering while he goes through the process that he has to go through to be able to get well enough to continue to translate the great works of Jayan Sheba through the truth of this teaching, through the truth of all the Buddha's pronouncements. May Jeffrey Hopkins be able to live many, many more years and be able to translate many, many more things and finish his work on Jayan Sheba's Madhyamaka Prasangika school and finish his work on Lama Tsongkhapa's Ngarim Chemo, specifically the Action Tantra section, and inserting all of the different Tibetan into it so that we can then really get the feel for what it means more. And may he write more commentaries in terms of the oral tradition on his personal experience with these practices that His Holiness the Dalai Lama has passed down to him and taught to him in a room alone. May we be able to hear these teachings, and the only way we can hear these teachings is if his life is extended and he has more longevity, and there's some obstacles right now. So may he have freedom from those obstacles. So imagining Jeffrey Hopkins, because even, with our deluded mind, I just told you this, I'm saying these beings are all Buddhas, but we can't see things the way that they are. We can only see it through our kind of distorted lens. So I just sold you on the reason why I establish things the way that I do with the merit field. So I try to see all of my teachers in this light because they've shared with me exactly what the Buddha came here to pronounce and clarify it as if the Buddha is right in the room. So that's good for me. And imagining Lama Zopa Rinpoche and imagining the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya and Asanga, imagining Dignaga and Dharmakirti, Basu Bandhu's there, imagining the Gunaprabha, Shakyaprabha, Vimuktasena, Haribhadra, imagining Lama Salimpa and Atisha, imagining the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni and Nagarjuna, and Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri and Nagarjuna and Buddha Palita and Aryadeva and Chandrakirti and Shanti Deva and Chandra Rashita and Buddha and Baba Vega, Kamala Shila, again Salimpa and Atisha, and imagining the lineage of blessings, and Vajradhara is there, and Sarahamatripa, Tilonaro, Losawa Marpa, Milarepa, Gampopa, all of these holy beings, imagining Drone Topa is there receiving the Lamrim tradition, and all those three Lamrim, old Lamrim traditions are there, holy deeds of the Nyingma, Sakya, Kaju, and Galupa, those beings such as Sakya Pandita, all of the Karmapas, and Padmasambhava, and the head of the Galupa, Lama Tsongkhapa, imagining Lakirtip J and Jelsip J and Pension Sanandrapa and Basuchuji Jetson and Jayan Sheba and Janja Ruby Dorjing, Gontra Jimmy Wampo, the seventh Dalai Lama, Jetsumba, Purbajok, all of these holy beings and all of the different lineages and the different schools of Buddhism that just give us these incredible jewels to be able to loosen our self-grasping attitude, our self-cherishing attitude in a variety of ways, because the Buddha came and proclaimed things in a variety of ways. So we need beings to proclaim things in a variety of ways. And we're so fortunate that so many holy beings have come with pure Dharma in their own variety to be able to help transform the minds of others, because Buddha's only come to teach the truth of suchness, and that's how beings are liberated, by meditating it on themselves. And every one of us has different aptitudes, different affinities, and thank goodness we have these variety of teachings that it can affect our minds and that can kind of be concordant with our mindset to try to rework the way that we look at things. And the way that we look at things needs reworking because it's incorrect all the time by appearance. So we have to kind of fix, at the last part, the way things appear, but the way we apprehend them, and it has to be fixed first to start to say, I don't know about the way I've been thinking. And that's really the first step. So we're so fortunate these beings have come to show us how to go step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the Lamrim tradition, imagining the highest Yoga Tantra deities, performance Tantra deities, action Tantra deities, 35 Buddhas, all the protector beings, imagining the whole entire merit field is in the space in front of you. All sentient beings are here. The merit field, just imagining everyone, all these beings are looking into your eyes. They're here in the room with you, and you're imagining it like this. You're making a mental image. You're creating an image that will eventually be able to not only be an image of or a picture in your mind, it will be the actual being in the space in front of you. And Lama Tsongkhapa got to the point where he would start to name the merit field, and they would come one by one and fill in, or the 35 Buddhas would fill in a very special way. And you can read about this in Lama Tsongkhapa's stories. So we will become just like this, because we're relying on the path that the beings that have this happen rely on. And it's valid cognition. It's not a mental manifestation or hallucination. It's a valid cognition. It's as a master who's had an experience like this, not me, would say is, no, this isn't some hallucination. This is direct valid cognition that everyone in the world would concur with is accurate. And I've seen this being in front of me. So there are holy lamas out there, such as Khenser Geshe Wandak, who have been able to have these experiences, and share them and write them down. So these are the kind of blessed beings who we've been in contact with. And this is why it's so easy for me to say inseparable from the root deity, things like this, because of the experiences that these teachers share with us that they've had by relying on the path. And the only way we could be influenced by a Buddha is if they come to convince us. And thank goodness Khenser Geshe Wandak did such a good job convincing me. And I hope that tomorrow I'm just as convinced, and the next day I'm just as convinced, and this perpetual convincing continues, because I'm really blessed to have been, affected by a Buddha. So now let's read the Heart Sutra together. We know that the Heart Sutra is an incredible work. It's the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, Rajagriha, Vulture Peak Mountain. Target audience, the Madhyamaka Prasangika participants, those who are going to have the final view of the reality presented to them. And it has an incredible way to remove obstacles, it's said. There's stories of the power of it. And whenever there's something really bad happening, you'll see that this is one of the things that's recited. And it's because it's ultimate truth being presented. What other words could have more power? What could you say for someone else more than the final view that removes all suffering and removes all blissless states? That final view, that the only liberating path. If all of these words are that which will make everyone never suffer again and have bliss, what more power could there be? And this is the summary of the definitive teaching of Lord Buddha, and it definitively teaches ultimate reality, and then implicitly teaches the conventional paths, the conventional truth, the 5 paths, the path of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more learning. So with that being said, we should always think about what the words mean, and also feel as though, as we're saying these things are empty, we feel as though there's like traversing of paths that are taking place. We can almost imagine that we're this practitioner that's going through the path of accumulation to the path of preparation. And one day we'll give the teaching, Jayan Gapi Lodru's teaching on the breakdown of where each of the paths is in this. It is, by the way, in the body of the text, where there are breakpoints, there are the paths of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more learning presented. So we can take a look at that in the future as well. But as you become more accustomed to reciting this, you can think about this bodhisattva who's going through this kind of understanding of emptiness, and you'll one day become this bodhisattva. So the beginning, this Teata Om Gate, leave it up on the screen. The beginning of the mantra that says Teata Om Gate Gate paragate, parasangate, bodhisoha. There's an om there. And this says 3 syllables that would aoma, which would symbolize body, speech, and mind. And here it's like the head of the mantra. Rinpoche always used to say, you put the om on the head. It's the head of it. And it can represent the pure body, speech, and mind of the Buddha, at the kind of beginning. But also we think about it in terms of our own body, speech, and mind and our own evolution. So we can think about where this being who becomes a bodhisattva, and we generate an aspirational bodhicitta, and we're on the first gate. We're on the path of accumulation, just for normal bodhisattvas. There's ways around, in and out, but normal way. So the first gate, we've gotten bodhicitta. We have this aspiration to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, for the benefit of all sentient beings. And then we take the bodhisattva vow, and we become an engaged bodhicitta. And then from here on out, there's no way our bodhicitta can waver. So then we're going through this path, and we're trying to understand emptiness more and more and more, because it's the only way that we can achieve our aims and all sentient beings' aims. So we're working with emptiness, not only so that we can be liberated for ourselves, we're working with emptiness in this Heart Sutra for the sake of all sentient beings. So when we're reciting this, remember, this is a Mahayana Sutra. So we're doing this. This is a bodhisattva who's going through kind of the trials and tribulations. Imagine what a bodhisattva would have to go through to get to Buddhahood. And we know that one of the things that a bodhisattva has to get prepared to do is to endure the hardships. So we imagine, as we're hearing this and we're starting to relate to it as we hear the words of the Buddha, we're imagining we're this bodhisattva who's getting this inferential valid cognition of emptiness. And then we're doing it for the sake of all sentient beings. And then we're seeing emptiness directly, like Lama Tsongkhapa has this breakthrough moment. We're understanding directly what the Buddha's talking about here. We're understanding directly ultimate truth. So we have this moment as the bodhisattva who understands the ultimate truth behind this, but then has to move to the path of meditation where they're still on the first bodhisattva ground and see emptiness over and over and over again at a deeper and deeper level to get rid of the subtler and subtler afflictions and their stains. So we imagine, as we're reciting this, we're this bodhisattva, and what it would take for us to transform, where we're at now, where we realistically, what kind of work do we need to do? And this bodhisattva is going through this journey of Teata Om Gate Gate, Paragate, Parasangate, Bodhisoha, and we're making it kind of relate to ourselves being this bodhisattva who's transforming, because that's who we will transform the same way. It's not going to be different. If we're following it from here, and we're looking at the Lam Rim, we're going to be able to mature through the stages of the path. The teachings shared in common with beings of small, medium capacity, and the teachings for beings of great capacity will be able to mature Teata Om Gate Gate, Paragate, Parasangate, Bodhisoha, and become Buddha at the other side of that. Whereas there's 5 paths for hearers and solitary realizers, but we're going out of the gate thinking, no, we want to see emptiness for all sentient beings. This is why we're doing it. Our liberation is Buddhahood. Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha, monks and a great gathering of the Sangha, bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way, he saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, O son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice a profound Prajaparamita should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics, there is no birth and no cessation, there is no impurity, no purity, there is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye, dhatu, up to no mind, dhatu of dharmas, no mind, consciousness, dhatu, no ignorance up to old age and death. no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajaparamita, fully awakened to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way: Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Buddhi Soha. 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 Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas would rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Aga samara jesana rasamaraya vedi ada ongati kati parakati parasangati buddhizoa baba gonja sanji kai den bedoji je lobodoji mebodoji shewadoji jagi baje mete beje daji je den gori so ha gerin jaja je je wada midon ne beje nan de wada tumba janji bonzon janjoji dashi de jan de da de le jo. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth the Shuld Mandala to you, precious Guru. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there's grasping, you do not have the view. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. The source of all my good, the source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. Bless me first to realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, what those deeds will bring to me, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs we do. Try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant me then that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddha's teaching. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, everyone my own mother, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice a wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough, for if I'm not well trained in the three moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the Bodhisattva vows. Grant me that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, the one other that analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. Grant that once I practice well the past share and become a vessel that is worthy, enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest door to come inside for the fortune and good. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I've entered thus, the cause that gives me both the high attainments is to keep my pledges and my vows most pure. Grant me then to always keep them, even at the cost of my life. Bless me next to realize as well as I can the crucial points of both the steps, the essence of the secret ways. Grant me then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the 4 times highest that there is. Bless me, grant me that the spiritual friend who shows me this good road and all my true companions in this quest of long and fruitful lives, bless and grant me that the reign of obstacles, things within me or outside me that could stop me now, stop and end forever. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path, and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond. Okay, so we don't have a lot of time left. I know that. What's new? So we're talking about calm abiding, and it's such an important subject, but it's not a subject we need to rip through and go a million miles an hour to try to understand. It's something that we're talking about before the teaching started, how to calm our mind down, how to get to this place where a mind can abide on an internal object of observation upon calming of distraction to the outside. So this is what we're trying to have happen, is having our mind abiding on something internally and calming down, pacifying all this external distraction. So this is what we've been talking about. And we've talked about the different conditions that we could have, that we would need to have set up to be able to really rocket ship towards this amazing mind they talk about called shamatha, which we would go through 9 stages to be able to achieve and have to abandon certain things. But it says there's prerequisites that you would really need to have to be able to do this well. And we see within some of those prerequisites, there are steep asks of having few desires and really being able to know who a good friend would be spiritually. And there's like a lot of things that we will need to kind of have prerequisites for prerequisites. And so I think that, part of the shamatha meditation kind of instruction goes over, different types of objects of observation for different types of people, and how you could actually, meditate on these counteractive properties, these kind of counter forces to our larger desires, and actually then hold. It's not like when we're explaining it, it's not just doing analytical meditation in this case. Now, when we hear it as antidotes to our afflictions, just generally speaking, we hear lamas talking about, using analytical meditation as antidotes to the afflictions. That's incorporated into this kind of first thing that we're talking about that would help us, be able to even sit for a retreat on shamatha. That's incorporated in it, but there's some special point that Lama Tsongkhapa makes about these objects, and that's that we can gain concentration with them. We can, pacify our mind to the point where we can then sit on an aspect of it. I know it sounds strange because we're used to thinking of ugliness to counteract attachment, and thinking of love to counteract hatred, and thinking of dependent origination to counteract ignorance. And that seems very like it's moving. But in this, there's somehow, and you'll have to search this out for yourself. I'm not an expert on this. I was given different, this is an analytical meditation, and my fixed meditation, I was given an object. So my own practice is how I do things isn't exactly like this, but I'm sharing with you what was shared with me in terms of the authentic texts as well. So you could, if you had such a problem with hatred, you could sit on love somehow as in an aspect, way, somehow or another. You would take, some sort of, and you find it in Lama Tsongkhapa's text. It's something that's really special that you find in there, that you have this ability to then kind of sit there on it. It talks about focus your attention without distraction. Hold on. You focus so it talks about different reference, and it talks about, it talks about, oh, I see. It talks about focusing your attention on this object. Sorry. It talks about focusing your attention on an object you've analyzed it, and then you kind of sit, on the object itself, kind of in a level of attention on it. So it's interesting to see how it talks about in the Lamrim Chemo, how you're focusing your attention on and in holding it there. That's what Lama Tsongkhapa says here. You focus your attention on some aspect and hold it there. So ugliness, you're thinking of the dirty, the skeleton, the pus, the blood, and you just think maybe pus and hold it there. So this is just kind of a side instruction that I wanted to kind of bring into this. So what we were looking at before, we went through the ugliness. That's, kind of look at things we're attached to in a different way. And we went through a way to do that. And now we were looking at overcoming hatred or aversion. And the antidote, always, no matter what, when we're always just talking about it generally, to hatred or aversion, is love. And love is wanting beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness. When we look at, love is that we talked about at the beginning of the teaching, and compassion is wanting them to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. So in the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, you have this, desire, this, I'm going to take it upon myself to repay the kindness of sentient beings who've been so nice to me. So now every being in the universe this being is just so wonderfully nice. You're so attracted to them because they've cared for you so much. And that attraction for them makes you want them to be happy, wants them to just be completely happy. So the reference for that love is that you just want them to have this happiness and ease. And then the referent for this next part of compassion is then you're focusing on the suffering and you wanting them to be free from that. So this is just merely the love is brought about by, I want to repay their kindness because I'm attracted to them like a magnet. They're like a, metal to a magnet for me because I want to help them so much. I want to repay their kindness so much because I remember that they've taken care of me when I was, vulnerable in some position of a being, and they were so kind to me, and I remember that kindness and want to repay it in some way. And that relationship that I've developed through that process of those first parts creates this kind of loving attitude that we could then use as an opponent towards hate. So it's not just, okay, I've got to just generate love. I hate this person. Okay, I'm just going to love them. Love them, love them. All right, right now, love them. No, it's a process of establishing that all beings, you would equally be able to benefit. Just kind of like, okay, neutrally, I'd be able to neutrally be willing to benefit them all because of some analysis that I've done. And then you start to intensify it by seeing how kind and relationship wise you've had this intimacy with every single sentient being. And then that develops into this feeling of intimacy for every single sentient being that you want them to be happy. Just like the people you love around you, you want them to be happy. It's, you have some sort of relationship that's developed to make you feel that way. Some sort of, dependent relationship, not like sick dependence, codependent relationship. It is codependent probably, but there's a dependent relationship there that's been created for you to feel love towards this person and not even imagine that they could suffer. You want them to be so happy. And then all of a sudden you see they're suffering and you go, oh my, may they be free from suffering. Does that make sense? That's how you move from love to compassion. You just want them to be so happy, but then it's like, but they're really, that's not going to work out until they're free from their afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience. So you see how it evolves into more and more and more as the meditation becomes bigger. So the real antidote for hatred or aversion is love, but it's not just, okay, love. It's a meditation that gets you to love that serves as an antidote to the hatred. So when we say antidote, ugliness is the antidote. Okay, so I know everybody's bones, so now I won't be attracted to flesh. I won't be attracted to other beings anymore because I know they're all skeletons. And I'll end with this story. I remember we were at a Yale Art Museum when we were in our younger Buddhist days. And we were all a couple years into Buddhism, and some people were very many months into Buddhism. We were at a Yale art showing. And I wasn't involved in the conversation, but I listened to it, and I thought it was one of the greatest things I've heard about attachment. And that was, there were two people talking, and they were both being Buddhist, and one of them was saying, wow, there's some really beautiful women here tonight. And the other one said to that person, yeah, but they're all going to get old and die and then separate, and like went through this whole shtick, the Lamrim shtick. And then the guy who's newer to Buddhism and also very good logician, the smartest one in the group, smarter than me all day, says, you know what, but not right now. None of that. No, none of that right now. He said, so then, and there was like a little bit of a pin drop and some laughter. So these are great ideas, but until you evolve your mind to actually think like that, it's just an idea that sounds like a good idea, but it doesn't stick when the rubber meets the road. And we need the rubber to meet the road and stick if we want to evolve spiritually. So that's all. So that's what I have to say about combating afflictions tonight, calming your mind down in order to combat afflictions. And imagine if you just hated everyone so much, like how could you ever have a calm mind? So if that's like your main gig, just hatred, it makes sense that, okay, let me just kill two birds with one stone. I hate to use that analogy with hatred. It seems kind of odd, but let me do that. Buddha's like so smart, like be smart, like streamline this. Guys and gals, streamline it. You got a big problem with this thing that's way out of control. Streamline it. Get your mind calm and combat it at the same time. Analyze up to this place where you sit. Analyze up to this place where you sit. And it's somehow then, in a lot of the commentaries, it's kind of like, then, okay, now meditate on the Buddha. Now meditate on emptiness. But it's this getting the mind more pliant, pliable, more serviceable is the fancy word we like to use. So if you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. There's grasping, you do not have the view. And a prayer for the flourishing of Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings. I appreciate you understanding my unorthodox style of present what helps when I choose to say it. So, prayer for the flourishing of Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings. Though he's the father, producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's Dharma and infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. When in the presence of Buddha Indraketa, he made his vow, the conqueror and his offspring praise his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish, that the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread. He offered a white crystal rosary to the sage, who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. His pure view, free of eternity and destruction. His pure meditation, cleansed of dark, fading, and fog. His pure conduct, practiced according to the conqueror's orders. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Learned, since he extensively sought out learning, reverently, rightly applying it to himself. Good, dedicating all for the beings in the doctrine. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scriptures, definitive and interpretive, were without contradiction, advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Listening to the explanations of the three Pitakas, realized teachings, practice of the three trainings, skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Outwardly calmed and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the two stages practice, he allied without clash the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish, combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle. Hard essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish by the true power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors like the main guardians of the three beings' paths, the quick-acting Lord, Vaishravana, Karmayama. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. In short, by the lasting of glorious gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverend holders of the teaching, and by the increase of the power of its patience, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Zandrapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made, may they be purified through this Vajrasattva mantra, imagining Vajrasattva in the space in front of you, inseparable from your root lama, and imagining that light rays and nectars are flowing down on you and all sentient beings, and transforming into white ohms, red ahs, blue hums, and purifying yours and all sentient beings, body, speech, and mind with the power of the mantra and the visualization. Om benza sato samaya manabalaya benza sato zaina bajita dela me baba zoda gaya me baba zuba gaya me baba anurag me baba zava siri me braja zava kama suja me gidam jay angoro hom ha bhagavan zava tata gata benza mami moka benza baba mahasamaya zava om ve. May we always be protected by Paul and Lamo. Jarama 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 Junja Kalara Jamarama Jadaja Junja Rung Jong Jarama 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 Jigala Jarama Jadaja Junja Rung Jong Jarama 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 Jigala Jarama Jadaja Junja Rung Jong Jarama 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 Jigala Jarama Jadaja Junja Rung Jong Jarama 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 Jigala Jarama Jadaja Junja Rung Jong Jarama 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 Jigala Jarama Jadaja Junja Rung Jong Jarama 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 Jigala Jarama Jadaja Junja Rung Jong Jarama 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 Jigala Jarama Jadaja Junja Rung Jong Jarama 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 Dunjo Galara Mo Rama Vajadaja Dunjo Rula Unjo. Any obstacles you're having to meeting with the Dharma may be removed by the power of the Drapa Sundri mantra, the mantra of the three wrathful protectors. Om Vajrapani Hari Agriva Garuda Om Ved. Okay, and I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well, with whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times. I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all-powerful Avalokiteshvara. Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. And a prayer of supplication to Namgyal Khensa Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our root teacher. We're so fortunate that he came into this world and blessed us with such pure Dharma and showed us exactly where to look for the answers to the questions that we have. And Gyewa Sapa told his students when he passed, as he was passing, that now that the books are your teacher. And they asked, who will be our teacher? And they said, here are the books. You know where to find the answers. So this is something that we know we can find teachers and are qualified teachers and should, but we should also not forget that Rinpoche said to look at these texts. And you can find it in the Lamrim teachings that he gave, where he said, the books become your teachers. And Diglo Khyentse Rinpoche said something like this. And then your mind becomes your teacher eventually. A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khyentse Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music, purified by Om, 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 Om. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you. Place the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. Teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar of our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of three capacities. Now the sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood the sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. The spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. Sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts in crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. And may the teachings that I give be able to connect you to Khyentse Geshe Wandak, and may you hear Khyentse Geshe Wandak's teachings in the teachings that I'm giving, so Khyentse Geshe Wandak is fresh, just right here, just like Buddha is fresh when you hear the teachings from a great master. It's no different whatsoever. It's the teacher to the teacher to the student, to the student, to the student. And we're so fortunate that Khyentse Geshe Wandak was part of our lives. And thank you for listening. Take care. We'll see you soon. See you on Sunday. We're all still here.
Thank you.